All right, welcome, welcome. Thank you for being so astute and apologetic, defending the scriptures. It's something that we should be all thankful for each other. We'll know who each other are on the street, the way we speak and the way we understand the word. If it's in you through the ruach, it's not through some theological institute or somebody on a pulpit who calls himself a preacher who's awfully interested in a business. You love these people. I loved many of my pastors. It's just that I realized I outgrew them so long ago, and there's just more to it than just running the business of a church. There's more to it than 45 or an hour a week. That is not Shabbat. That is not RIP, rest in peace, that we were meant to be. So let's continue on. We're at the last part of chapter 1, and it goes, Elohim saw that all that he had made. Now, this is the 6 day creation. I don't have a problem with it. When I go out there and look in the earth and I take a big shovel and I dig down through all the layers and layers and so forth, and just as you can do, and that doesn't even come close to an understanding of, well, you can't make it fit. If it doesn't fit, you, you've got to quit. Famous thing from the O.J. Simpson case. You can't make a square go into a round hole. A square peg doesn't go into a round hole, and if it doesn't fit, just don't make it fit. You keep going back in the word as if we've done as you doing now, and you're going, oh, so when you look at some of the creations, especially dinosaurs, I use that all as example. That's not just one example. That's one of a million examples. The great creatures that we could only imagine existed during the first Earth Age, and we're in the third Earth Age. We're not even in the second. Well, you're making one up with number one when actually number two is where we are. No, no, Noah came out of the flood, and so there was um, a a second Earth Age, and then after that there is now a third, because after the year and a half, 18 months out there, when Noah and his family and all the animals in the ark and all the beasts that were in the ark came out there, you'll notice that not too many generations later, there's cities in the plain again with Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve, when Cain left, there were cities in the plain. How'd those cities get there? Oh well, Adam and Eve had a lot of kids. Really? Yeah, yeah. I used to believe that too, just hook, line, and sinker. I believed all that. And then after Noah, you think, well, the whole world was destroyed, and within a few generations, as you'll read, because we're going to take you there. There's now in the Middle East, there's all these cities. They build Babylon. Where did the cities of the people come from? And the beasts and the animals. The father says the animals. He just says, and I loaded all the animals onto it, and I guided them on there, and Noah and his family, and his sons and his family. That's that's what they did. They just got on there, and then they got off, and and then there was enough people for a city. How'd that happen? Okay, just let it sit. And as we go through this Bible, it's just like any book that you've ever read. It will explain itself very plainly. Just don't let all those outside religious matters don't let religion get caught up into what the word says. Chapter 2. Thus the heavens and the earth were completed in all their vast array. And by the seventh day Elohim had finished the work he had been doing. So on the seventh day he rested from all his work. Comment. This is the first Shabbat. He rested from creating. He didn't go to sleep. He just stopped creating. There has been no new creation since that time. No new creation, right? Right. There hasn't been. They can all be traced back. He did not rest from caring for his creation, which he does forever. He still cares for it. And he put Adam and Eve on this earth to tend the garden. He's not asleep. Verse 3. And Elohim blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because on it he rested from all the work of creating that he had done. He had done. Comment. Shabbat means rest in Yahweh, as Shabbat was made for us. Shabbat was made for man. Man was not made for Shabbat. Okay? That's Yahweh's gift to us. 24 hours. Not just an hour or two in assembly or church attendance. On a weekly basis sometimes. Or just Easter and Christmas. Verse 4. This is the account of the heavens and earth when they were created, when Yahweh Elohim made the earth and the heavens, and no shrub of the field had yet appeared on the earth, and no plant of the field had yet sprung up. For Yahweh Elohim had not sent rain on the earth, and there was no man to work the ground. But streams came up from the earth and watered the whole surface of the ground. Yahweh Elohim formed the man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. Very important. Adam received the breath of life. So were there other beings on the earth that didn't have the breath of life in them? The Neanderthals? Those very hairy people, in which a lot of people, most people on the earth, have that DNA in them, by the way. It's been mixing of the seed. It was never meant to be. Okay? But does that mean you can't be saved? No. It doesn't mean any of that. That's why in the first Exodus, which we'll read to, that's why in the first Exodus that we're going to read to you, um, those people, the 12 tribes, went, and there were other mixed peoples that went with them. There were other grafted in people in the first Exodus. Verse 7. Yahweh Elohim formed the man from the dust of the earth and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living being. So that wasn't the first time. Think about this. All the animals of the hundreds of millions of animals that exist, they were all formed from the dust of the earth, not just Adam. Think about that. It will help you to understand this whole thing in the Genesis as we get started causes derision and hate and discontent and new church congregations because they just don't read the Word. Comment. Notice that man became a living soul, but not possessed by one. A soul can die. So the soul existed. Your soul, those destined to be with the Father forever, existed for a long time, even before the earth was formed. So your soul existed, but your body didn't. So what we're taught in schools and churches is that, oh, you have a body and there's a man and woman get together, and the soul comes together from where we don't know, all of a sudden into the human body. Um, and so your body exists in some form of a zygote or a very small growth, and then the soul gets into it. Here we're saying the opposite. The soul actually existed before and it obtains a body, which is you. That's what we're saying, which makes you very precious. And just remember this: the Father loves every soul that exists. These bodies and our appearances and what we look like in human earth form will be transformed supernaturally, but nothing of the human form will enter a perfect heaven because only perfect can exist. And that soul will be perfect. And the human form that it's changed into, just as Yeshua was the first fruit to be changed, we're going to follow that. He's the first fruit, and we follow with it. Verse 8. Now, Yahweh Elohim had planted a garden in the east, in Eden. Now, the east of where? And there he put the man he had formed. And Yahweh Elohim made all kinds of trees grow out of the ground, trees that were pleasing to the eye and good for food. That's the second time it's mentioned that things that produce fruit and seed are good and made for man. And in the middle of the garden were the tree of life. Now, here we go on another one. Pay attention. Very important. I'll read it again. In the middle of the garden were, it doesn't say is, it says were the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And I'll read my comment here. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil is not mentioned in the final heaven. It's not. Think hard here. The tree of life continues on forever. Tree of life represents Yeshua. The other tree, tree of knowledge, the tree of knowledge of, and don't say evil, good and evil. People always make the tree so evil. The tree, and here's what a bunch of other ministers say in this Bible commentary. Well, the tree is a computer chip, or the tree had Satan in it. Satan made the tree. The tree was not originally in the Garden of Eden. Satan snuck it in. Oh, I see. Our Father in heaven is blind. Okay. Let me finish the comment. In the final heaven, redeemed mankind, the bride of Yeshua, does not need written Torah in the final heaven. It says that. We will have it written in our hearts. So we won't have a Bible book to read. Won't have all these Bibles to read. Won't have to go to Bob down the street or Jim or Joan to get a Bible interpretation, because it will be written perfectly in our hearts. So that tree of knowledge, so there's no Torah, no written instruction, no laws, no statutes in the final heaven. Why? Because it's all written in our heart. The tree of knowledge of good and evil is not itself evil. It is the tree of knowledge of good and evil. It contains knowledge of evil, knowledge of good. In legal terms today, we call these law books, statutes, ordinances, Supreme Court. That's where they sit there and they divide what is good and what is evil. That's what they're supposed to be doing. We call these people judges, police. All people would need to hear and obey the instructions of the law, and to hear and obey the law, which is the 40, 50, 80,000 laws that we now have. We are saying plainly that the tree was Torah. Don't get too upset. Think about it. Don't throw things at me. That tree was Torah. Torah is um, a document that you read, and when we get to the other Deuteronomy and Exodus and Numbers, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Moses laid it out, the good and the bad. And by the way, there was a lot more bad that the Father did. Like, for instance, you do something and you pick up sticks on the wrong day of the week, you get killed, you get stoned to death. Is that sound evil to you? It's a law that was made because they're stubborn, fool-headed people, and Yahweh had about had it with them. And matter of fact, he had so much had it with him. By the time they get through the Exodus, none of them, save for two, entered the promised land of Jerusalem, of Israel, and the land that surrounded it. All the promise to them, they did not. They perished. They perished in the Exodus, and there's a reason for it. So most Christians today, most Hebrew roots followers, most scholars will go nuts here with this statement, but you must continue to read the entire Bible and decide for yourself how important this statement is. For that reason, we'll stop there. My time's up on the 15 minutes, and ponder on these things, pray on it, and we'll get back with you. Amen.